Hello students, my name is Brooke Wren, and today we will be discussing the moon. Now, what we will be learning is where the moon came from, the different phases of the moon, the relation with the sun, the earth, and the moon, and its phases, and we will also be talking about gravity. Now first, I want to talk about where the moon came from, because a lot of students are always asking, where did it come from? I heard from one person that the moon is made out of cheese and, all of that. And I would like to discuss one theory that is widely accepted among scientists, and that is the Great Impact Theory. Now, the Great Impact Theory is the most widely accepted theory of the origins of our moon. And what it says, or what the theory says, is that the moon was formed during a collision of a smaller planet and the Earth, resulting in a chunk of the planet floating next to our Earth, and now it is known as our moon. Now this happened billions of years ago, whenever the Earth was being formed, when a planet just collided into our Earth, broke off a chunk, and started just floating right there, next to our Earth. Now, a question that you guys may be asking is, why is it floating next to our Earth? That's kind of strange. Well, it's because of gravity. Now, whenever the planet crashed into ours and broke off the chunk, the Earth is pretty big and has its own gravity on the outside in space. We have our gravity on Earth, which we know about, but outside of the Earth, we also have gravity. And that is because whenever you have a big mass, things will be attracted to it. So, for example, the moon is attracted to our Earth's gravity, so it orbits around the Earth and stays here. So, specifically, gravity keeps things together. That's why the moon doesn't just float away. It's because gravity keeps it together. Planets have their own gravity. The sun has its own gravity, Jupiter has its own gravity, Venus has its own gravity. All of the planets in existence, even out of our universe, have its own gravity. The bigger the mass, the more the gravity attracts smaller objects. So the moon is very small compared to the Earth. That is why the moon orbits around the Earth. And also we'll be discussing the sun and how the Earth revolves around the sun. And here's the example. The sun attracts the Earth into orbit because the Earth has a smaller mass than the sun. So the sun, Earth, and the moon. The Earth orbits around the sun because as we discussed, it's because of gravity, because the sun is massive compared to the Earth. Huge. Our moon orbits around our Earth, and planets rotate around the sun due to gravity, because the sun is very massive and has a huge mass. That is why all of planets stick together and revolve around the sun. So the sun is related to our moon because it also changes our moon phases. As you can see here, there are different moon phases, which I'll be going into every single one of them. But I would like to discuss how the sunlight shines onto the moon and hits the Earth, obviously. That's why we have day and night. While the sun hits the moon and allows different phases because the Earth revolves around and the moon also revolves around. But the moon revolves around the Earth slower than than the Earth rotates, which we'll be going over, because the Earth takes 365 days to rotate to make a whole year, while the moon rotates around our Earth in 27 days. That is a little bit. And each of these days, you will get a different moon. It will look different throughout the month. As you can see, as it changes, as it rotates, it changes the way it looks. So why does the moon change its appearance? It takes the moon 27 days to orbit the Earth, like I mentioned. As the moon orbits the Earth, it changes its appearance. This is why you can see the moon, or you cannot see the moon throughout the months. Now, this is from the Earth, this visibility. So we can only see the moon phases. If you went out into space, you wouldn't see the moon changing phases. It will look like this only from Earth. And the moon glows due to the sun reflecting off of the moon's surface. That's why you can see that it lights up. Now here's a visual of the moon phases from Earth. Now I'll be talking about the moon phases. So there are 8 phases in the moon cycle. Here's an example of a month of different moon phases, how it changes every single day. So the 8 phases of the moon cycle are new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, first moon, waning gibbous, third quarter, and waning crescent. Now here are some words to know before we continue. So we need to know what waxing means and waning. Now whenever it says waxing, it is when the illumination of the moon increases. Whenever I say the word waning, what waning means is when the illumination of the moon decreases. Now here's some visuals of the different moon phases. So here's a waxing moon. As you can see, this portion is lit up. So it will create a full moon because it is going this way. This is waxing. Now this is an example of a waning moon. It is going to be a new moon, so it's going to be dark. As you can see, this portion is illuminated. So I will be going over the different moon phases now with visuals. So a new moon is the first in the lunar phases, and it is when the moon becomes nearly invisible from Earth. As you can see, there's a little teeny tiny sliver that is noticeable, but is mainly not illuminated. So this is a new moon. Next is a waxing crescent. Now, as we learned, waxing means increasing. So it is the second phase in our lunar cycle. It is when the moon starts to become visible. So as you can see, this portion is becoming visible. You can start seeing the moon from Earth. And also, like in the name, it looks like a crescent. So as you can see, it resembles a crescent. Next is a first quarter. So this is the third in our lunar cycle. And it is when half of the moon is illuminated. So as you can see, half of it is visible. Next is a waxing gibbous. So like we learned, waxing means increasing. It is the fourth in our lunar phase cycle. And it is almost fully illuminated. So as you can see, it is almost a full moon. Almost. A big portion is illuminated, but not quite a full moon. Now it is a full moon. This is the fifth phase in our lunar cycle, and it is fully illuminated. So look how beautiful this is. It is fully illuminated. Next is a waning gibbous. So as we learned, waning means decreasing. It is the sixth phase in our lunar cycle. And like I mentioned, this is when the moon starts to wane or decrease. So as you can see, it is going down. Next is third quarter. It is the seventh in our lunar cycle. and the illumination is starting to get smaller. So as you can see, it's halfway, starting to get pretty small. Next is a waning crescent. This is the 8th and final phase of our lunar cycle. The illumination of the moon is at its smallest before the new moon. So after this one, it is a new moon, and it'll just be black.